America's entry to World War I can easily be characterized by two events among the circus of incidents. The first is the sinking of the Lusitania on May 7, 1915. Near the old head of Kinsale Island, the German U-boat U-20 sank the British ocean liner. While there were an estimated 1,260 passengers who died, 128 Americans were on board that day. While America stayed neutral, it did increase aid and assistance to the Allied forces. Woodrow Wilson's neutrality policy had kept America out of the war and free to trade among all nations. On November 1960, Wilson won re-election against U.S. Supreme Court Justice Charles Evan Hughes by nearly 600,000 votes in the popular vote. Although his efforts to keep America out of the war were vital to his re-election, U.S. intervention was becoming inevitable. In an act of desperation to secure the western front of the war, Germany resorted to unrestricted submarine warfare, despite previous terms and conditions. Germany had hoped to end the war long before America would join the Allies and send troops to Europe. However, Wilson insisted neutrality.
There is such a thing as a man being too proud to fight. There is such a thing as a nation being so right that it does not need to convince others by force that it is right.
Contrary to the popular opinion, not everyone was satisfied with Wilson's stance of neutrality. One of these opponents was Colonel Theodore Roosevelt. He strongly believed that America was entitled to instill freedom and democracy among the world, as he shared.
If Abraham Lincoln had kept us out of war, there would have been no free state of Kansas. If our forefathers had believed in safety first, there would be no United States today. The phrase is nauseating to a patriot acquainted with the history of our country.
Not only had Wilson been feeling the pressure of growing German opposition, but matters in Mexico were building as well. The Mexican Revolution and its series of staggering events led to diplomatic tensions between the U.S. and Mexico. Francisco Pancho Villa, a general in the Mexican Revolution, had stirred up the state of Texas after leading a raid across the border. Because of this, Texas began to pressure Wilson to increase the National Guard. Ultimately, the crosshairs of war laid sight on America when the German Foreign Minister Arthur Zimmermann plotted to conspire against the neutrality of the United States. Zimmermann had sent a coded telegram to the German minister to Mexico, von Eckert. This coded telegram was the final tool that propelled America into the Great War. Fortunately for the U.S., British cryptographers were successful in intercepting and decoding this pivotal message. The intent of the telegram was to persuade an alliance with Mexico in exchange for its lost territories, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. As expected, this direct threat against America swept the world from its feet. As the U.S. severed relations with the conniving nation, Germany was clueless and confused as to why they were informed of no authentic reasons for America's actions. By March 1, 1917, the press had word of German intentions despite denying their message. By this time, the growing sentiment against Germany had already taken its claim among Americans. While there was an overwhelming response for U.S. intervention, there was some fear of the American force fighting overseas. Unrepresented European Americans hoped to keep America out of the war and urged for peace. However, American intervention was now deemed necessary.
The events about to unfold before us happened over 40 years ago. Perhaps you were among the crowds that stormed the Capitol on that fateful day in 1917. Some shouting for war, some crying for peace. Inside the White House, President Woodrow Wilson conferred with advisors, then signed the proclamation of war against Germany. The men present here are gone, but preserved on Pathé film, this moment of history remains.
On April 2, 1917, President Wilson requested a declaration of war against Germany. Wilson concluded his reasons for his declaration of war to be Germany's carnage against merchant ships and their American passengers, as well as their attempt to mobilize Mexico against the United States. A few days later, the House voted in support of American intervention. On April 6, 1917, America was officially in the war to end all wars.